I never knew a city which looked upon itself more negatively than Bogota. People thought their own city was horrible, and they had no self-esteem, and they thought their city was not only bad, but it was going to be worse. They were completely hopeless, and it completely transformed. Maybe not so much the city, but the people's attitude, in which they began to feel it was possible to improve, to dream, and to make their dreams reality. I had been dreaming about what cities should be like for a long time. And I had a very short term as mayor, only 3 years, so I had to do many things very quickly. And we did, and it was difficult and painful. It was, for example, cars in Bogota have been parking on the sidewalks for decades. The largest roads in Bogota for the last 50 or 60 years had been built without sidewalks. It was assumed that the neighbors someday would build them, and of course they never did. They just built parking lots or parking bays, or there should be sidewalks. So I started getting cars out of the sidewalks, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of them, and it was a war. The real difference between an advanced city and a backward city is not, as they think in developing country cities, that it has highways or subways. No. The real difference is that upper income people go to the parks, go to the sidewalks, go to the public transport, go to the libraries. High income and low income people meet as equals in public spaces. The most important piece of infrastructure for a city, what makes a difference between the advanced cities and the backward cities, is not highways or subways, but quality sidewalks and hopefully protected bicycle ways. It was very difficult, but what is amazing, to make the story short, is that afterwards even the upper income people loved it. When I finished my term, despite the fact that at one time I had maybe only the guerrilla people were more hated than I was, when I finished I had the highest positive image any mayor has had in history in the city of Bogota. What we decided was to invest in a city with more equality. Well, our main driving force was to construct equality. And in developing country cities, public pedestrian space is equality. I mean, you may think, is this an important thing for a country where there is so many poverty, where there is so much poverty, to think about these apparently ridiculous things? But on the contrary, during wartime, high-income people, maybe the vice president of a corporation and the lowest paid person in that corporation who cleans the floors or serves coffee, both of them are more or less equally satisfied or dissatisfied. It's when they go into a leisure time, there is a huge difference. The upper-income person goes to a large house with a garden, to country clubs, to country houses, to restaurants, to vacations, and the low-income person and his or her family go sometimes only to a room where the whole family lives, or at least, at best, to a very small house. And the only alternative they have for their leisure time to television is public pedestrian space. So I would say the least of the least that a democratic society must offer its citizens is the possibility to walk, to be able to go around the city safely, to hopefully to ride a bicycle. To me, I have been thinking about these things for many years, and to me it was clear that what we had to make was a city more egalitarian, more humane for people, for bicycles, and for public transport. That the only solution was public transport. We invested almost $100 million in bicycleways, protected bicycleways. And this had never been done in America, not only in Colombia, nowhere in Latin America, in Canada, or the United States. In America, there were no bicycleways. We in Bogota even had a very important tradition for 20 or 30 years, which we closed many main streets during Sundays for 7 hours, which we call the bicycle way. So in order to make a difference between the name, we had to even to invent a name for the new permanent protected bicycle ways. And we also increased, by the way, the Sunday closing of the streets. But so this was very important because this has never even been discussed. I mean, if you really think in Nordic country terms, it was not a very democratic decision because this is something nobody had even considered. It wasn't there, it was not even a discussion about this. And so it was a risk that we had to take. And we were able to increase in Bogota the use of bicycle from about 0% to about 5% of the population. Still nothing compared to the 35 or 40% in Copenhagen. But we move about 350,000 people by bicycle every day. But a protected bicycle way is a very powerful symbol of equality in a developing country city because it shows a citizen on a $30 bicycle is equally important to one on a $30,000 car. The citizens, I mean, I would say in Bogota, maybe the increase in use of bicycles was at least as much because we protected the cyclists as the fact that we increased the social status of cyclists. I mean, before people were ashamed to use a bicycle. Now the lowest income people are the ones who most love to wear the helmet and to have a reflective vest and everything because now they feel important. We increased the social status of using a bicycle. And
how?
Because I would say, first of all, to having the infrastructure, to having the bicycle ways completely gave a new importance to cyclists. They had never imagined that they had a right to these things. It was, we also started many means to restrict car use. We started, for example, a measure that people, 40% of cars have to be off the streets during 2 peak hours in the morning and 2 peak hours in the afternoon. We started many measures to restrict car use. This was the first one. 40% of cars had to be 2 hours in the peak hours in the morning and 2 peak hours in the afternoon out of the streets, or they got a fine.
How did people react to restrictions?
Well, this was very difficult because it was, all the restrictions against cars are very difficult because it's the upper income people who own the cars. So I told them, look, this is for you because this will work better even for you. And at the beginning they protested, but then later on they realized everything worked better like this. Sidewalks, parks, huge investment in parks, and we bought land. Park is very important because in the future, low-income people will have everything in terms of toys that upper-income people have today. They will. Nobody thought the poor would have electricity or sound equipment or cameras or much less mobile phones. Now they have all of these things. In the future, they will have iPods and they will have computers and maybe cars and all this. But what they will not have is access to green. Maybe access to green, access to parks, access to public space, maybe is the most crucial element to create inclusion and equality towards the future, or exclusion. So, and if parks are also very special because if we do not save land for parks, it's not possible to do it later. I mean, in 20 or 40 years we can do a sewage treatment plant or to clean up a river that is dirty. But if we do not save the land for parks, it's very difficult to demolish hundreds of hectares afterwards in order to create parks. So we bought a lot of land for parks and we gave an importance to parks we had never had the city. And also all of this has a great impact in lowering crime rates and making, having less violence and things like this. Transmilenio System, for example, is moving almost 1.5 million passengers per day at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to move them by subway. Not only the investment cost, because the investment cost for a subway, maybe if it's underground, maybe $200 million per kilometer, while this system may be $10 million per kilometer or less. We are doing now one for $6 million per kilometer, for example. And the operational cost also in a subway, the lowest operational cost per passenger that I know in a subway in the world is about $1.50 per passenger. And Transmilenio covered costs without any subsidies with 60 cents of a dollar per passenger. So it's a much more efficient system at very similar speeds, but Transmilenio is a very powerful symbol of democracy as well, because it shows that public good prevails over private principle. It shows that public transport has a priority in the use of road space over private cars. This is therefore a very powerful principle, and I think it's better for people to go above ground, above the city, to look at their city, to get the sun, and to go very fast. Because a bus system can be even faster than a rail system. One thing we did in Bogota, for example, was two interesting projects. We did a 24-kilometer pedestrian and bicycle street only through some of the poorest areas of the city, which is something that doesn't exist anywhere in the world that I know of. And it's completely transformed. This is like an elongated plaza. It's like a 15-meter wide, even very sophisticated underground cables for the lighting. And it transformed the lives, because even through neighborhoods where you don't even have pavement, the car streets don't have pavement, and the pedestrian street has trees, lights, it's luxurious homes. And this type of thing can be the axis of the new concept of cities, things like this. Another thing that we did, which is similar, where JICA, the Japanese agency, had proposed an 8-lane highway, we did a 35-kilometer greenway, which is also like a pedestrian, and thousands of bicyclists go to work every day through it. This links the poorest and the richest neighborhoods of Bogota through bicycle ways. Things that will make a city better are things that make a city more egalitarian, that make general principles, things that will get rich and poor together as equals, things that make a city more friendlier to pedestrians and restrict more and more car use. A city more for the most vulnerable citizens, for children, for the elderly. If children can be safe in more places, in more areas of the city. If people can ride bicycles safely in more areas of the city. If a city is friendlier to the elderly, to the children, to the lower income people, if you can create more integration, if you can improve public transport, this will make a city that is better. I think this is a city that is more fun. And I cannot go into specific projects, but the things, what is it that we need? We need not to feel inferior. We need to play. We need a city which is good for the most vulnerable citizens, for the poor, for the elderly, for the children. We need to have contact with nature, with trees, with green, with water. We need to see people. We need to see people, so we need density. We need to be able to walk to buy milk or bread. If somebody has to get into a car to go buy milk or bread, then the city is not working. These general principles, I think, work for any city anywhere in the world.